Upasakanam yadupasaniyam upattavasam vatashakhimulem tadhama dakshinyajusha swamurtyam jagartu chitte mama bodharupam adraksham akshina dayanidhanam आचार्यम आद्यम वटमूलभागे मौनेन मंदस्मितभूषितेन महर्षिलोकस्य तमोनुदन्तं विद्राविताशेषतमोगणेन मुद्राविशेषेण मुहुर्मुनीनां निरस्यमायां दयया विधत्ते देवो महान् तत्त्वमसीति बोधम् ममाद्य देवो वटमूलवासी कृपाविशेषात् कृतसन्निधानः ओङ्काररूपाम् उपदिश्य विद्याम् आविद्यगध्वान्तम् अपाकरोतु अंतर्यस्य बहिर्विधूततिमिरं ज्योतिर्मयं शाश्वतं स्थानं प्राप्य विराजते विनमतामज्ञानमुन्मूलयन् पश्यन् विश्वमपीदमुल्लसति यो विश्वस्य पारे परः तस्मै श्रीरमणाय लोकगुरवे शोकस्य हन्त्रे नमः। देहं मृण्मयवज्जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतु नाहं तत्तदभावसुप्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्ट्वात्मनिष्ठात्मनां सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। So today is the fourth day, I think. We are continuing the life and teachings of Bhagavan Buddha. As we have already spoken about, the essence, the spiritual essence of all this, whether it is Buddhism or whether it is Advaita Vedanta, we are not concerned about the debating portion, Vada. We are concerned about the spiritual aspect, about Vairagya, Viveka, Shama, Dhamma, etc. A true spiritual teacher is a Bishagwara. What we call Bishagwara means a physician, a healer. One of the most Pramanika Ayurveda Grantha, authentic Ayurveda text followed in South is Ashtanga Hridayam. It is all mostly contributions of Buddhism. Arya Vagbhata, he was a Buddhist physician. So in the very beginning he chants a verse. It's actually, there is no name of Buddha there. But the spiritual teacher, the Guru, who is he? He is not a scholar who will give you more and more names, explanations. No. He is a great healer. Apurva Vaidya. He says Apurva Vaidya. That wonderful physician. And what is that he is healing you of? the inner disease that is in the mind, which is attachment, aversion, and due to which desire is spreading all over the body. Ragadi rogan satatanushaktan ashesha kaya prasritan asheshan autsukya moha aratidan jagana apurva vaidyaya namostu tasmai. I bow down to that apurva vaidya, that wonderful teacher, that wonderful vaidya. So, Ramana Bhagavan also speaks about Arunachala as a great medicine. Malai Marand, medicine in the form of a hill. And medicine for what? Medicine for insanity. And when we come and surrender to Arunachala, we accept. What? Yes. Some problem is there. Some problem is there. No? So when we come here, Paitiyam Patri Payanarum Yanakku Un Padamurum Aru Marundu Arulvai. There, Arunachala is called as the healer, the physician. So the patient is coming to the physician and telling him, give me that medicine by which this inner abnormality, disturbance will be removed. Give me that great medicine. So, that is the Apurva Vaidya. So, Buddha, many places, he also says, I am a Vaidya. I am a Bishagwara. And this is the true medicine. What we are getting here is this Jnanam is the only medicine. Ayurveda at least says there are three problems. Kapha, Vata, Pitta. Vedanta says there is only one problem, that is avidya. Ignorance. Ignorance is the problem. And from avidya comes this separate identity, asmita, ahankara, I. And then this asmita becomes ragadvesha, attachment, aversion. Then tremendous clinging to life, abhinivesha. This is Yoga Sutra, what I am telling. So this is klesha. This is called klesha. And this blowing out of this klesha is nirvana. Sanklesha nirvanam. So this klesha nirvanam, this is removed when the ego is removed. As Bhagavan puts it, the state where the I thought does not arise is the state where we are that. என்ன பாட்டு? நான் உதியாது உள்ள நிலை, நாம் அதுவாய் உள்ள நிலை. The state where the I does not arise. But why does the I arise? It is ignorance, unawareness. Unawareness of the substratum, the source. So the separate identity, the separate individual sense arises. The limitation comes. Limitation of the mind, limitation of the body. And removing this limitation, because limited person is going to suffer. Na alpe sukhamasti. The Upanishad says, na alpe sukhamasti. There is no sukham in alpa. Alpa means limited. Bhumeva sukham. In the infinity is only there is sukham. And what is that infinity? What is that bhuma? Yatra na anyat pashyati, na anyat shrunoti, na anyat vijanati sabhuma. Where you do not behold the other, you do not listen to the other, you do not touch the other, there is no other there. And that is bhuma. Yatra anyat pashyati, anyat shrunoti, anyat vijanati, tad alpam. Where the other is there, it is alpam, it is finite. It is limited. And in that limitation, there is no fulfillment. And when you remove that limitation, we say we have to remove, but Bhagavan says limitation does not exist. You superimpose limitation. In your real nature, there is no limitation. Every day in deep sleep, everyone is experiencing that state where there is no body, there is no mind, there is no individual sense. Only that existence, satta is there. And the moment the I thought arises, the mind blossoms, the body comes, the senses comes, through which the world appears before you. And so too it goes back. It arises there, it goes back there. Buddha's teaching is that many have attained that realization by simply listening to Buddha when he says, the source from where dukkha arises and the source where it goes back. Bhagavan's teaching is also that. Very casually he said, somebody said, Bhagavan, I want to do tapas. Bhagavan did not answer. Then again he asked, I have come such distance so that you will guide me, show me some place where I can do tapas. Then Bhagavan smiled and said, tapas pannanama. He wants to do tapas. What is tapas? Vanda valiye po. He said, go by the way you came. And he was shocked. I have come with so much reverence and is Maharshi making fun of my quest. And then someone who understood it, he told, what did you ask? I want to do tapas. And what is tapas? Go the way the I came. Trace the I thought to its source. Find out where from this I arose. There what exists is your real nature. It is your true nature. It is nirvana. It is shanti. It is your swarupa. So, such simplicity is there in truth. Then why are we suffering? Truth, Bhagavan says, is so simple. In a part, Ayye Ati Sulabham. Says it is very sulabham. Then what is the cause for suffering? Because truth is simple, but we are complex. So all our struggle is to remove that obstacles. Pradibandha nivarti. This pradibandha, these obstacles which is all kept superimposed due to ignorance we have to drop them. So much accretions have come around. So to drop them is all this effort. And our entire life, this every action, behind every action there is desire, and behind every desire there is this ego, and behind every ego arising there is ignorance, unawareness. So this constant awareness, wakefulness. Yesterday we saw that one mantra, pratibodha viditam. So that is constant alertness. Jagrata, as the Upanishad puts it, Jagrata. And the Jagrata is tapas, it is the austerity. When we come to this essence, we find how much Buddha has given instruction on all these things. As Bande said, most attention is given to the Jagan Mithya. Jagan Mithya means what? You are Mithya. That is the basic thing. Not that you are real and all the Jagat is Mithya. Because this I is so important. I want this, I want that. My. As Bhagavan puts it in Tamil, my. English my madrita. Mayai nit mayinal unadu unmai vasham akkinai arunachala. So this my this mindness. So, we can, in a way we can say, I and mine. This I is removed by jnanam. You just recognize it doesn't exist. But this mindness can go by renunciation only. So that renunciation, that is why we say Vedanta Vijnana Sannyasa Yoga. Both jnanam and renunciation, both go together. Bhagavan's view is much more deeper. When somebody asked Bhagavan, should we not renounce? Bhagavan said, you know the self has already renounced everything. The moment you recognize the Atma, you know nothing exists there. But in that knowledge, true renunciation will happen. It has to happen. So that is another side of it. This is the highest point of this wisdom. When we fly in the sky, sometimes we will forget the walking path. That is the problem. So, to take care of the walking path, the flying in the sky, no route. Buddha speaks about that as the birds have no wing prints. Like that the fish which is going in the water, you cannot find the route. This is exactly there in Mahabharata, where Shankaracharya quotes this as a shloka many places in Bhashyam. Shakunina mivakashe jale varicharasya cha yatha patham na drishyate tatha jnanavatam gatihi. The route of a jnani is like that, like the bird's flight or like the fish going in water. No route you can find. But as long as you are having this I, ego, individual sense, you have not even, the takeoff has not happened. There, where what we call the runway, you need all the basic things, basic elements. Yesterday Bande spoke so much about the austerity in the vihara, about small things, how much you have to pay attention. These are very, very important. Unless a person is wakeful about these things, alert about these things, it is not possible to take off. So, that is all those things, small details are very important. Sadhana. In our tradition also, although we speak about the highest Advaita, sometimes people wonder when they go to traditional teachers. They speak Advaita and they will be doing puja for hours together, doing japa, anushtana, and so orthodox. Why they are, these contradictions will be there. Because you need, this runway should be clean. The discipline is needed. Complete discipline is needed. Austerity is needed. So that, for that is this vihara, there's so much of discipline in life. So about that we need to listen. And here also many people, when they read Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's work, one person told me, it's so easy, so simple. You just inquire, who am I, realize. But my God, when I came here, you have to walk 14 kilometers. It is Giri Pradakshan. What is the connection of this and that? I would have done this, who am I, in my room in Switzerland. And walking around this, and he said, nightmare. He said because of that town there. So these are all basic things associated, not directly connected to the jnanam, but they are all needed. Yesterday, when they spoke about walking meditation, somebody asked Bhagavan, what is the use of Giri Pradakshina? In fact, a great saint asked, that is Muruganar, he asked Bhagavan, Bhagavan, what is this purpose of Giri Pradakshina? Bhagavan said, you go. That is the answer. You go. And he went and came back. And Bhagavan asked him, what did you find? He said, the moment I crossed Nirriti Lingam, body consciousness was gone. It all dropped. In those days, only one or two will be there. No, nobody will be there. All not crowded, no one around. And Arunachala himself, Arunachala was different. You don't, many of you have come recently will not know that. Not a single tree. It will be completely rocks and boulders, very dry. That had its own beauty there. It had its own beauty there. So in those days, this Giri Pradakshina, you can see Arunachala everywhere. You start from here, the whole Pradakshina road you will see Arunachala. Now, either forest or buildings, they cover. So, it is like a Mahameru Pradakshina. You see the edge and walk. So, that was the Upasana here. And what does that Upasana give you? In Bhagavan's life you can see, looking at Arunachala, Arunachala tells you Tattvamasi. Don't look at me, look at yourself. The mind is turned inward, made to behold that I within you, that Tan, as Bhagavan puts it. So that, for that you need all these Upasadhanas. And this Upasadhana, yesterday Bande spoke about this walking meditation, about their bhiksha. Many people were afraid, some of them have not come. Because so this once one elderly person came with us to Vasishta Guha. Shantananda Swami was there. So we were staying there for 2 weeks. And seeing that elderly person, Swamiji said, you are already old, very ripe. You can take sannyasa. After that, he never came out of the room. All these 2 weeks, he didn't come out of the room. So, anyway, Abhaye Bhaya Darshana. Gaudapadacharya says, they are afraid of fearlessness. Abhaye Bhaya Darshana. Afraid of fearlessness. So this is the path of fearlessness, as Bande very beautifully said, the badge of fearlessness, badge of the arahant. So that we will today continue the talk. We are waiting, very eagerly waiting to listen further for what? What? Stories. Don't interpret.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang gunuttarang upajjayang namasami. Tapocha brahmacharyancha ariya satchanadasanang nibbana satche kiriyachetang mangalamuttamanti. Aparutate sangamatas sadvara yeso tavanta pamucchantu sadham. Buddhanam janani shani bodhisattva pitamahi satprapitamahi sattvanam prajñe devi namostute. Hridaya guhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram hyahamaham sakshad atmarupena bhati. Hridi vishamanasa va chinpata majhata va pavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. So with Acharya's permission, start to share a few ideas today. Lovely to see everyone. It's very, very special welcome to Ayasmanta Jitindriya and Samaneri Jayasara, two elder sisters from our tradition who've come all the way from Australia. They're spending time at Tiruvannamalai. So it's lovely to see both of you. Welcome. So, like Acharya said yesterday, we spoke about the monastery life at a typical Thai forest monastery. So today I thought, let's do once upon a time, like Acharya said. And interestingly, whenever you read any sutta, in Pali it's sutta, Sanskrit it's sutra, it always starts with evang me sutang, thus have I heard. And then it sets the context, ekang samayang bhagava varanasiyang viharati, so on and so forth. So at one time, the Bhagavan Buddha was in Varanasi and this happened and that happened. All the scriptures that are contained in the books of discipline, Vinaya, they start with Tena Samaya, at that time. So the moment you hear this and you understand there's curiosity that comes up. It's the Therawada version of Once Upon a Time. But just before getting into the stories, I thought I'll share. Yesterday there was a question about enlightenment. And one of the topics we'll talk about are traditional accounts in Theravada that talk about the 4 stages of enlightenment. But there's a funny story related to that. So there are generally 4 stages: Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahant. What they are, we'll talk about later, but this is the gradation. Start off as a Sotapanna, then become a Sakadagami or an Anagami, and then you become an Arahant. And so this story I heard from Ajahn Brahm. So apparently there's this monastery in Sri Lanka which offered an intensive training course. And at the end of the training course, the monks will assess all the participants and give them certificates. Right? Your Sotapanna or your Sakadagami or Anagami or Arahant. And this was wildly popular. So lots of people started going. And this one lady went. She was very intense. She was very committed, full of bhakti. She did the course and then she was interviewed by the monks. They finally gave her a certificate saying that she's a Sotapanna. She was so upset. She said, "This is not right. I want my money back. I can't accept this." So the monk was explaining to her, no, Sotapanna is it's a very high state. 95% of your work is done when you're a Sotapanna. After that, it's all subtleties. You just need tweaking here and there. Tried all sorts of techniques and all sorts of methods to convince her. She was definitely not convinced. So then the monk said, "Well, what's the problem? Why are you resisting this?" She said, "No, I attended this retreat last year and you said I was a Sakadagami. This year you're telling me I'm only a Sotapanna." Right? So, yes, these are indicative. All these levels and attainments are indicative of progress. But it's hard to put a label because who knows? We really don't know. So that was the joke. So I thought today we'll share the story of the Lord Buddha's enlightenment. So far we spoke about his first teaching, all the events that preceded the first teaching of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Then we spoke about the austerities that the Lord Buddha did. And now is a good time to actually speak about his enlightenment experience. What happened on that Purnima night of the month of Vishakha? But before that, whenever we read the sutras or the suttas, the Buddha always, first of all, refers to himself in the third person. And he never addresses himself as the Buddha, except in 2 or 3 places. But everyone knows him only as the Buddha. So when he refers to himself, he just says Tathagata. And then when his disciples or someone else is addressing him, they say Shakyamuni, because he's from the Shakyan clan. So Sakya in Pali, Shakya in Sanskrit. So Sakyamuni, or Sakyaputra, or Sakyaputta, or Munikunjara. There are many, many names. Sakyamuni, that's another. So all of these are how the Buddha is known. But very interestingly, only in 2 or 3 suttas, the Buddha refers to himself as the Buddha. So one of the interesting sutta is that the Buddha decides to walk somewhere one day, and he's walking. He decides to take a break and meditate under a tree. So there's a Brahmin called Drona. In Pali they say Dona, but in Sanskrit Drona. So Drona comes out and he's walking on the same route. And he sees the footprints of the Buddha. And he's very intrigued. And he says, there's so much, Ascharyam and Adbhutam, Acharya Abhuta. To look at footprints like this, I've never seen footprints like this. It kind of looks human, but it has the wheel of Dharma, and it has the Surya and Chandra, and has some conch shells and all of that. And never seen, so I must find out whose footprints these are. So he goes walking, and as he's walking along the road, he sees the Buddha sitting under the tree and meditating. And so he goes and he prostrates in front of the Buddha, and the Buddha then opens his eyes, and Drona asks him the same thing. He says, are you a Devata? The Buddha says, no, I'm not a Devata. He says, are you a Yaksha? No, I'm not a Yaksha. Are you a Gandharva? No, I'm not a Gandharva. Are you a Manushya? Buddha says, no, I'm not a Manushya. So now Drona is a little stumped, because he's looking at this human form. This form is very radiant, very peaceful, but yet he's denying that he's human. So Drona says, what are you then? So then the Buddha says, Buddhosmi Brahmana, Buddhoti mam dhareti. So I am the awakened. So henceforth you can call me the Buddha. And he gives a lovely explanation. He says, yes, it is possible for me. It would have been possible for me to reside as a Deva, or exist as a Gandharva or a Yaksha, or even as a Manushya. But any of the tendencies that are required for such existence, all those tendencies have fallen away. He says, Mayate asava khina vidhasta vinali katha. He says, all these asavas, asava is like a vasana. In Pali it's asava, Sanskrit is ashrava. All these asavas, with khina, it has become kshina. It's become literally devoid of nutrition. It's become weakened. Vidhasta, it's fallen down. Vinali katha, blown away by the wind. So there's nothing here remaining by which I can say that I'm a Deva or a Yaksha or a Gandharva or even a Manushya. All I am is wake. I am awake. That's it. I'm just wakeful. And he says, Pundarikam yatha vaggu toyena nupalipati upalippami lokena tasma buddhosmi brahmana. He says, just like all these lotus flowers, Pundarika, even though they are born in the water, when they are mature, they stand up from the water and they open up, they blossom up. There's not even a drop of water that sticks to them. In the same way, I was born in this world. I have lived in this world. I have grown up in this world. Now I stand apart from the world. Not a single particle of the world clings to me. as a reverse, I don't cling to the world either. So that's how the Buddha describes himself in a rare occasion, a rare instance. Otherwise, he just calls himself the Tathagata. So now going back to the theme of the Buddha's enlightenment. So generally in the Buddhist calendar, we have three very important occasions. One is called Magha Puja. It's the Purnima, the full moon during the month of Magha. And that was when the Buddha uttered or spoke this very famous and very lovely piece called the Ovada Patimokha. We'll look at that probably tomorrow. Then the second festival, of course, is Visakha Puja. So it's the Paurnami of the month of Visakha, or Vaikasi in Tamil, Vaikasi Masa, Paurnami. And the Vishaka Purnima is considered to be the birth, this is the day of the Buddha's birth, the day of the Buddha. அப்படியா நாளைக்கு மாகமா இங்கே இங்கே நான் இங்கே இதில் ஃபெப்ரவரின்னு நினச்சேன் இல்லையா Yes, so on the Paurnami of the month of Vishakha is supposed to be the day of the Buddha's birth, his enlightenment, and his Mahaparinirvana, the great passing away. And then, of course, the Ashada Paurnima, the month of Ashada, in Pali we say Asala. That Paurnima is the day in which he gave another teaching. Is that the Anattalakana? No. Asala Puja was... Yeah, that marks the beginning of our Chaturmasya. And I thought he gave a teaching on... Yes, I don't remember either. So anyway, these three are the most important festivals. So first question is, how can it be possible that a man was born on the same day, he was enlightened on the same day, and he attained Mahaparinirvana on the same day? It's, how do you explain that? Well, some things you don't have to explain. You just can't explain. There's a beauty to mystery in the spiritual life, and some things you needn't really go, and that's for the scholars and the historians, theologians. Like, we are here just to take the message from this story or this occasion. But for me, it seems as if what it points to is just a constancy, a timelessness. So all these occasions, all these events, they can be constant and they need not be bound by time. Maybe it's a representation of that. But anyway, so as we spoke about yesterday, the Buddha was doing, or day before yesterday, the Buddha was doing all his austerities, and he was in a state of complete, almost near death, right? He was completely emaciated. If he touched his stomach, if he put his finger on his stomach, he could touch his backbone, vice versa. He was very, very weak. If he tried getting up, he'd black out, things like that. So then, in some accounts, and this is what Acharya was mentioning yesterday as well, in some accounts, it is said that as he was contemplating the value of all of these austerities and whether it's really taken him close to the goal or not, he heard someone playing the veena. And then the thought occurred to him, oh yes, to get the right swara, to get the right pitch in the veena, the string should neither be too tight, neither should it be too loose. So if it's too loose, it will be abhaswara. If it's too tight, the tandi odanjirum illaya, the string would break. So he says you have to have the perfect tightness. And he says he applies that to his own practice, where he says, shouldn't be too ascetic, neither should I be too indulgent, and I should follow the middle path. And he gives this as a piece of advice. In the Theravada canon, this doesn't actually come as part of this story. But I think in the Tibetan tradition, that's quite, that's part of this. So then...
But here the Majjhima Nikaya gives the teaching to a
Yes,
veena player.
to Sona, Ama, Bhante Sona. So there's a musician called Sona who wants to become a monk, and he goes and he asks advice. And the Buddha gives him the same analogy, that this is how you should practice. Your practice should neither be too tight, nor should it be too loose. So, he decides that he's going to start taking normal food, so takes care of his body, he eats properly, he rests properly, and then he practices, near the Niranjana river. And he walks a little while and he sees this tree and it's the full moon. So he makes a determination that I'll sit here tonight. And, my bones can turn into dust, my blood can dry up, but I will not get up from this place before I attain full understanding, full, complete freedom. And he starts sitting. Sanskrit. And, a lot of meditators or young monks, they get really inspired by this and they say, I'm going to sit like that. Let my bones break. Or let my blood dry up, but till I'm enlightened, I'm not going to get up. But the Buddha has done so much before that. So this was only a final culmination. So, like in our tradition, we give a lot of importance to all the practical things. So if you wash your bowl properly, that's good enough. The meditation will take care of itself. So anyway, not to get too carried away by that example, but the Buddha says that he makes a determination, he sits down, and the night has 3 watches. So the first watch of the night, he is able to recollect all his past lives. The second watch of the night, he is able to determine how the law of karma, the theory of karma works, not just for him, but for entire humanity and for all sentient beings. And then finally, in the third phase of the night, he is able to understand the Four Noble Truths. For the first time, he is able to concretize the Four Noble Truths in a proper manner. So in Theravada, just as we have the Buddha, the absolute antithesis is Mara. So Mara, some people say, is like Yama. Mara means, in Pali, it means Marana, death. Right? So he's the absolute antithesis of the Buddha. So whenever there's light, darkness is threatened, darkness disappears. So whenever there is a Buddha, there is an awakened being, Mara, death, or the forces of delusion, forces of greed, forces of hatred, all these forces are threatened. Because the Buddha has none of those, and he's teaching everyone else to let go of those. So Mara wants to consolidate his position. So he says, whatever happens, I should not allow this Samana Gautama to achieve Buddhahood tonight. So the Buddha is sitting there and meditating. And as he is meditating, Mara says, okay, we have to distract him. So he uses many techniques. Right? So he says, the first thing is I'll try and tempt him. So he sends 3 of his daughters. His daughters are Tanha, thirst, Raga, sensual pleasure, and Arati, discontent. Right? So of course, Tanha we all understand. So all these images of sensually attractive beings come in, and so the Buddha is just totally unmoved. Then it changes to other images of great power, great authority. The Buddha is still unmoved. And finally, they try and kind of frustrate the Buddha. Arati. So the meaning of arati is you don't have rati in anything. There's no rasana for anything. So you can imagine how agitated the heart is going to be. Arati. Palila arati ngira. Arati. Arati. Same thing. Arati. There's no rati. Right? So then what happens is that the Buddha is still steadfast. He's just sitting there with his eyes closed. All of these scenes come and flash in front of him. He's totally unmoved. And so Mara knows that this is not going to work. So he's tried temptation. Temptation has failed. So he decides to try fear. Let's frighten the Buddha. Right? So then Mara appears in front of the Buddha with this huge army of 700,000 soldiers, demons, whatever you want to call them. Mara is sitting on his elephant, Alavaka. And this elephant is the most frightening war elephant you can ever see. He has all his generals and all the huge army behind him. And they start throwing spears and shooting arrows at the Buddha. The Buddha is just sitting through all of this. And every time a spear or an arrow comes into the field of the Buddha, they are converted into flowers or into garlands, and they drop on his feet. So then Mara gets even more disheartened. Oh gosh, I've tried temptation, I've tried fear. There's nothing that's going to move the Buddha. It looks like he's going to achieve his path. So then let's at least try and use responsibility. We'll make him feel a little guilty. So Mara disguises himself as Suddhodana, as Buddha's father, King Shuddhodana, and appears in front of the Buddha. And his father is old, and he has a little bit of a hunch, and he looks weak, and he looks tired, and he says, oh Gautama, you know how things are, and I really respect your this intention. I really respect your renunciation, but look at how things are back home. Your mother, Pajapati Gautami, is not doing too well. Your son Rahula, he's still young. He needs a father figure. The kingdom is really lost without you. Everyone wants you back. And yeah, your half-brother Nanda is there, and he's a nice, very nice prince, but he's not of the same caliber as you. So tries to guilt the Buddha into coming back. So please, for the benefit of your family and for the benefit of the people, please come back. And the Buddha is totally unmoved. He's just sitting there. And while all this is going on, at each instance he's able to recognize this is only Mara. This is only Mara. So now Mara has tried temptation, fear, responsibility. Nothing works. Finally, he says, okay, because all this isn't working, let's at least goad the Buddha into abandoning this quest by insulting him. So Mara then takes his own form back, and he says, oh, what are you sitting here? What do you think you're doing? You think you're some great force of goodness or something? You have failed at everything you've done. When you were a prince, you weren't happy, you failed there. Then you said you'll become an ascetic. You did a few ascetic practices, and then you failed there, so you started eating milk rice and started indulging yourself, completely failed there. Even the people who were meditating with you have no respect for you. Now you're sitting here, you want nirvana, and even now you're failing, So you don't deserve, that you don't deserve to sit on the Vajrasana, the seat of diamond seat. You don't deserve to sit on it. I must sit on it. Look at me. I'm so powerful. Look at this army behind me. I am the most important. I am the foremost in everything. So the Buddha is kind of patient. And finally what happens is that Mara is going on and on like this, kind of insulting him. And all of his armies, all of his demons and his crowd, they're cheering Mara on, saying, no, Gautama is useless. Mara, you are the one. You are the great Lord. You are the one who should sit on the Vajrasana, not the Samana Gautama. So as this is going on, the Buddha just opens his eyes and he touches the earth. And when he touches the earth, the goddess Dharani Mata, Bhuma Devi, she appears and she proclaims, no, Gautama is my true son. He has let go of everything and he has attained complete and true freedom. You, Mara, have no power here. You have no place here because of the Buddha's goodness. So she unleashes her hair and wipes off Mara and his armies. And that is the moment and just after that, the next morning dawns. So that's the moment when the Buddha attains full enlightenment. So whenever you see a Buddha statue where the Buddha is sitting with his left hand on his lap and with the right hand touching the ground, that is what it's representing. It's called the Bhumi Sparsha Mudra. The mudra is called Bhumi Sparsha. So he touches the Bhumi and Bhuma Devi comes and proclaims that he is the one. So one way of looking at it, one of our great teachers, Ajahn Amaro, would always say, well, what this actually means is that we can't do anything without our mothers. So our mother, the Buddha is, Goddess Earth is the mother of all of us. She had to come and she had to say that her son is fully enlightened. That's when the moment of enlightenment became authentic, became official. So all the mothers here, please give yourselves a pat on the back and much gratitude. The other way of looking at it is that as these three phases of the night are going on, it was an internal thing. The Buddha was looking inwards and he was realizing all these things within himself. But then his role as a Samma Sambuddha, as a Samyak Sambuddha, is to bring the teachings, is to bring the value of this to all of humanity and to all sentient beings. So until he connected with the earth and until he opened his eyes, his enlightenment was not complete. He needed that connection. Because whatever is inside can be wonderful, right? But to bring goodness, it has to be connected. That has to flow outwards. These are some of the representations. And of course, just as how Mara used fear, temptation, guilt of responsibility, and finally ridicule, that's how life is for all of us. Right? In our own lives, especially if we are on the spiritual path, we will face fear, we will face ridicule, especially ridicule, right? And especially intimidation, anxiety. These are all part and parcel of the spiritual process, spiritual maturity. So just like how the Buddha did not give in to all that, we should have that same steadfastness, sthitaprajnata, that is so often mentioned in the Gita. Bhagavan Krishna says sthitaprajnata, how to. So that here is an example of a sthitaprajna at work. So then Buddha is proclaimed as the Buddha, and he starts continuing. He kind of wakes up, and he's now fully enlightened. And the first kind of thought that he has in his mind, we spoke about how he wanted to just pursue his silence and not bother with the world till Brahma Sahampati came and made the request. But on the other hand, the first kind of recorded utterance in the Pali canon, he says, Aneka jati samsarang sandhavisang anibbisang. There have been so many births. Jati in Pali is birth. So I've been reborn again and again. Aneka jati. And all in this samsara. Sandhavisang, all the time running. Anibbisang, never resting, never stopping. Doing what? Gahakarang gavesanto. I'm searching for this person who built this house. What's the result? Dukkha jati punapuna. Always ending in sorrow, always ending in birth. So sorrow, birth, birth, sorrow, sorrow, birth, sorrow. Punapuna. Then he says, after his enlightenment, Gahakaraka ditthosi. Now I have seen the house builder. Puna gehang nakahasi. He can't build another house again. Sabbate phasuka bagga. All his materials have been shattered. So he's talking about his asavas, his vasanas, his kleshas, his samskaras. All of these things have been let go. So the house builder doesn't have walls, doesn't have flooring, doesn't have cement, doesn't have bricks, doesn't have anything. Sabbate phasuka bagga gahakutang, the ridgepole that holds the house up, visankhyatam, it's been completely destroyed. Visankara gatang chittang tanhanang khayamajjaga. And so now that the ridgepole has been destroyed, what is he left with? He's left with a chitta which is completely devoid of all sanskaras, all vasanas, and it's absolutely pristine, pure. Right? Tanhanam khayamajjaga. So any means or the slightest trace of tanha, desire, has been completely eliminated. Right? So that's how he describes his own awakening and his own process of realization. So I'll leave it there now and look at these questions. So that's the story of the Buddha's awakening. Tomorrow we'll look at some other stories. Hari Om. Differences and similarities between your school and that of Thich Nhat Hanh. Yes. So like we were discussing the other day, Thich Nhat Hanh was a very beloved, respectful teacher, very beloved and respected teacher. He comes from Mahayana. So today when you look at Buddhism, you find Buddhism in three broad packages. The first package is Therawada. Our scriptural language is Pali, and we are dressed like this, right? And we are considered the most sober school, sometimes the most boring school as well, because we don't have drums and bells, and we don't do mandalas, and we don't do some do prostrations. But generally the most kind of sober. We're very ascetic, right? Thich Nhat Hanh comes from the Mahayana school, and they're kind of the cool school of Buddhism. Right? So they're a little more free, they're allowed music, and they have a lot of devotional singing, like bhajans. I really miss bhajans. So Thich Nhat Hanh, in his tradition, in his school, monks and nuns are allowed to grow their own food. We are not. So basically, Thich Nhat Hanh is from the Mahayana school, and my tradition comes from the Theravada school. That's probably explanation enough. I have seen the monks in Ladakh draw mandalas with colored powder 30 years ago. Significance of this practice. Well, from a very practical standpoint, it is a training in patience, it's a training of being precise, but most importantly, it's an offering of devotion. Right? So it's devotion, being able to, being precise. So, and at a deeper level, it is also a training in letting go. So when you look at all these monks, there'll be many, many monks drawing a mandala, and they'll draw it for months on end. They have to prepare all of these colored powders. So apparently, initially, it's all naturally sourced. So they'll pick different colored rocks and they'll powder it, or they'll have some plant extracts and keep it. They make their own powders. And then they have a mandala, which is representative of generally Kala Chakra, but it could differ. So they'll spend a lot of time, and they work in shifts, because some people are very good doing the outline, others are very good filling in the powder. So they work in shifts, night and day, night and day. It could take weeks, it could take months, depending on the elaborateness of the mandala. So it's a huge exercise in commitment and determination. Then finally, when the mandala is complete, everyone looks at it. It's so delightful, it's so beautiful, it's a work of art. And then they take a piece of cloth and just destroy it, right? Idea of letting go. You've created something so beautiful, and you still have the courage to say, it's impermanent, it's gone, that's it. We do the same thing in Kerala, right? If you go to Kerala, there are lots of pujas where they draw all these padmams, right? So you have Swasti Padmam, and you have the Durga Padmam, you have all of these different padmams. There also, so much effort goes into that. You have to measure it out. You don't have a template or a stencil. Everything is done using thread. You measure it. Then you use arisima, you use rice flour for the outline. And then for all the powders, you either take turmeric that gives yellow, then to make it brown, you add a little bit of lime, chunambu, make it brown. Then for the green powder, we'll dry either bilba leaves or tulsi leaves. That has to be dried, that has to be powdered, that has to be stored, right? So black, you use coal, powdered coal, you rub it against a rock and make it powder. So a lot of effort. And then during the puja, same thing. The Padmam is done, then there's Avahanam, then there's Puja. And finally, after the Deeparadhana, they take, with the flowers, they destroy it, and it's pushed away, right? Same thing. So it's the idea, the deeper meaning is that you put in a lot of time, you put in a lot of effort into creating something beautiful, then you wipe it away. And in the Tibetan practice, so usually in my house when we've done Bhagavati Seva, after the puja is over, we'll take all the flowers and we'll take all the powder. And keep some of the powder aside as prasadam for the forehead, and dig a pit in the back of the house and put the flowers there so that it's not trampled on. It's a respectful way of dealing with the flowers after the puja. What the Tibetans do is they'll collect all that and they will take it to a river which is near the monastery and put it in the river. They'll chant mantras. They'll dedicate all this effort for the well-being of the whole of humanity. So similar meaning. You spoke about sharing interests with your guru like bird watching. Did the others ever ask you about your Hindu beliefs, Vedas, Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita, etc.? Yes, incessantly. Some of them are sympathetic, supportive, Some of them are not sympathetic, not supportive. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting for them. But generally, everyone's been very kind and they're also curious. In most of our monasteries, it's very rare. So unless they're Thai people or Sri Lankan people, they're not born into Buddhism, right? So just as I have a Hindu upbringing, like a Brahmin upbringing, we'll have Mennonites, we'll have Jews, we have Lutherans, we have Catholics, so many other. So they come with their backgrounds too. So, but I will say that it was more a problem for some of my family than for the other monks. You know, they thought I was letting the side down. They thought I betrayed my Brahminical heritage by being a Buddhist monk. But now they're very happy. But the most important, my parents, my brother, they have always been very supportive. Some of the elder aunts were really upset. They said, and I'll say it in Tamil, but they said, Poonaliyam adichittu, Mandayam mottay adichundu, aandi mari ukandundu irukke. They said, you know, you've removed your sacred thread, you've shaved your head, and you're sitting like a beggar. Why is that what we are seeing? You know, they felt really bad, but most of them have come around. Any restrictions on use of digital devices like mobile phones in your daily routine? Yeah, I still don't have a mobile phone. I'm quite enjoying the fact that I don't have a mobile phone. So in our monastery, generally, all devices are shared. So we have an office. That office has computers. It has a couple of tablets. And generally, so yesterday I was telling you how we have the Navaka, Majjhima, and Thera, those, you know. For the Navaka monks, for the first 5 years, and especially for the Anagarikas and the Samaneras, personal internet access is only 2 hours a week. So we restrict that. Emails, FaceTime with your parents, or Skype, or whatever platform people use, it's only 2 hours a week. Then later, when you become a Majjhima monk, who's been a fully ordained monk for over 5 years, there's a little more flexibility. But by then, we are wise enough to know that, okay, the lesser time we spend on the computer, the better it is for us. Because there's nothing really worthwhile on the internet. Then there's a lot that's really worthwhile. But generally, when you're bored, you don't look at all those good things, right? You want to find out what Donald Trump is up to. So not a good input. So yes, definitely, there is a lot of restrictions initially, and with time, those restrictions become voluntary. Namaste, can you share the meditation techniques or methods followed in your ashram? Yes, so like I was saying yesterday, right, the teaching of Ajahn Chah and Ajahn Sumedo, my guru, Ajahn Viradammo, it's not really technique oriented. So for us, it's more a holistic practice, holistic lifestyle, holistic cultivation. But the Buddha has definitely prescribed certain methods of meditation which is available in the Pali Suttas, the Pali Canon, both in the discipline section, in the Vinaya section, as well as in the Sutta section. The first thing so let's say someone is absolutely new, they've never meditated before, and they come and say, we want to learn meditation. Then what we do is we start with breath. Thank you. Suresh Lal. Per? Sumet. Thank you. So we start them off with breath meditation, because breath meditation is the most calming, and it's really, you see results very, very quickly. The results of it calming and relaxing, and reducing anxiety, reducing stress. So many teachers have come up with many techniques, but generally this is different from pranayama. Pranayama, we control the breath. In Buddhism, Buddhist teachings, we call it anapana sati. Sati or smriti. Ana, the incoming breath. Pana, apana, outgoing breath. Just focusing on the in-breath and the out-breath. Some teachers have then done a lot of work, like there was this great Thai forest master called Ajahn Lee. This Ajahn Lee, he actually walked, I think he was the one he wasn't the one who walked. But he came to India, he came to Buddha Gaya, he spent a lot of time there, and he consulted a lot of yogic masters. And so he has come up with his own take on Anapanasati, which is quite effective. So, you count and I've done one of his methods a long time ago and I found it incredibly useful. So we start off with the breath. Then Anapanasati, then especially for young monks who are finding celibacy difficult, the Buddha prescribed something called, not just for monks, even lay people, lay men, lay women, monks, nuns, anyone. The Buddha prescribed something called Asubha Bhavana. So for us generally, Asubha Bhavana or Shubha Bhavana. So generally when we get enamored by a physical form, human physical form, we are taught to look deeper, look inside of it, right? So what we are enamored with is only the surface. So if we remove the surface, there's no longer any enamoring. So there are various techniques. People go to charnel grounds and meditate in the Sudugadu funeral grounds. They go sit there and they look at funeral pyres and they meditate there. Like in the West, there's not much of that. There are hardly any funeral grounds, and now it's all electric anyway. So some monks go to visit morgues to see decaying bodies in various stages of decay. It's very common in Thailand because they know that this is a meditation practice. In Canada, you have to get special permission. But still, couple of our monks have done that. I've never done it. So there's that, there's Asubha Bhavana. Then there is the Bhavana on Metta. Metta, a Pali word for Maitri. So Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekha. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha, same thing. Right? So there are techniques by which, there is a method of practicing metta that the Buddha has taught. So you've got breath meditation, you've got this Asubha Bhavana, then you've got Brahma Viharas, which is metta meditation. Then there is a very wonderful, it's actually quite detailed, it's called the Satipatthana. Smriti Upasthana. So in Sanskrit, Smriti, remembering or recollecting or being mindful of, being aware of. Upasthana, establishing. So you have to establish. So a good, fairly common English translation is establishing mindfulness. Right? So then the Buddha says, okay, you've got two things. You've got the body and you've got the mind. This body, something is going on, which is sensations. Then with the mind, there's something that's going on. These are thoughts, emotions. So there is a particular way of looking at the body, looking at the sensations, looking at the mind, looking at thoughts and emotions. So that kind of meditation is called Satipatthana. Then a very wonderful practice, there's a set of 10 anusatis. So anusati, again, just remembering, smriti, anusmriti. So you can bring in thoughts and memories, recollect the virtues of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. There's another very wonderful teacher in our tradition called Ajahn Jayasaro, and he has this wonderful technique. He says, well, not a technique, but he has a wonderful suggestion. He says, imagine you're going to prepare a meal for the Buddha and his immediate disciples. Right? So imagine that you wake up in the morning, you have a shower, you wear clean clothes, you go to the market, buy all the vegetables, and go through the whole motion of preparing all that, packing it, keeping it. Then have a shower again, get into your best clothes, take it. You go into the cave where the Buddha is sitting there, and there's Shariputra and Madgalyayana and Ananda and Kashyapa, Mahakashyapa, all of these great disciples are there. So you go and you're offering them the food. Then he says, how does it feel in the heart? So go to that. Very, very similar to Shivamanasa Puja, right? That we do. It's wonderful. Ratnair Kalpitam Asanam Himajale Snanam Chadivyambaram. The same concept. You picture everything in the heart. You meditate on it. So Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati. Then Silanusati. Any virtuous actions that have been done by you. Recollect that. Bring that into your heart. Because generally we will only remember all the bad things we've done. Right? And we keep guilting ourselves over it. But if we can remember the good things we've done, that becomes a great source of self-worth, not ego necessarily, but a confidence. It gives us some shraddha, some confidence, right? So that we can do it again. So recollecting sila, recollecting tyaga. So in Pali it's chaga, Sanskrit tyaga. So anything that we have done for the benefit of others, right? Recollect that. Recollect all these punya karmas. Then there is devatas. So you can picture any kind of devata and focus on that form, right? Meditate on that, devata anusati. Then there's maranasati, focusing on death, contemplating death. So like I was saying yesterday, my teacher and my father are the same age. My mother is not too far behind. So I often contemplate, not in a bad way, but I contemplate about what's going to happen if they pass away. Right? So again, it's not the idea of so much planning their funeral in your head, but you make a statement, okay, Amma is dead. Then you go down to the heart and feel that sensation. Make it really, really conscious. What's going on in the heart center or in the stomach? What's going on? Maranasati. So then finally upasamasati, recollecting the cessation of suffering. Right? Like how we spoke about, the traffic is gone, traffic is done, but immediately instead of relaxing in that silence, we reach for the mobile phone or we reach for the TV. So, these are some kinds of meditation techniques that are followed in traditional Theravada monasteries. So I think...
Japam is...
Nama Japam, actually Ajahn Chah, so in the Theravada tradition there's no Japam as such. But Ajahn Chah would always just say Buddho, Buddho. So when you're walking with the left foot, Buddh, right foot, Dho, Buddho, Buddho. Or with the in-breath you can say Buddh, with the out-breath you can say Dho. But unlike the Vajrayana tradition that has Bija mantras, Bijaksharas and Mula mantras, so they have Om Mani Padme Hum, or they have, Mahayana has Gate Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhiswaha. Like that, Theravada we don't have mantras as such. Not that I recall, do you? Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. But you can keep repeating that. So different phrases, Buddhang Sharanang Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So you can, any phrase that's, but we don't have Mula mantras as such. So we don't use the pranava vakya. We don't have any bijaksharas. So that's
Space meditation.
yes. So again, contemplating elements, the bhutas. So contemplation of air, contemplation of earth, contemplation of fire, and then contemplation of space. Ajahn Sumedho was huge into that akasa meditation. Then Ajahn Sumedho would also say, listen to the sound of silence. What is the sound of silence? Nada yoga. Yeah. So those are some of the techniques. But most traditional ones are what I said earlier. Sound of silence, akasa meditation, these are all adaptations by our teachers. But from the Pali canon, the others were quite authentic. Yeah, kind of.
Devata concept apart from Brahma Sambhati, any other Devatas?
Yes, so in Theravada, there is Theravada's own structure of. So we have Vriksha Devas, we have Bhumi Devas, we have different kinds of Devas. Generally, Devatanusati is not focusing on a particular Devata, like not particularly meditating on, say, Shiva or Parvati, but it's more the idea that there is a benign, benevolent force that's in a realm that is higher than our realm, and to get their dakshanyam, to get their anugraham, that kind of. It's not very, very strict or very defined or very particular in that manner. Yes? Yes. So that is Vajrayana. I'm not. Oh, repeat the question. So the question is, how are Tulkus and Rinpoches recognized? So, are you aware of the process? Would you like to?
Oh, no. It's just simply, usually through some divination. Very
Yes.
high teachers like the Dalai Lama or Sakyajin spend time meditating, sometimes from dreams or divination. They can recognize a leader.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not. So, first of all, what is the difference between a Tulku and a Rinpoche? Rinpoche is a precious jewel. Yeah, could be a Tulku or not a Tulku, right? But a Tulku is someone who's more a known teacher, as the reincarnation. Yes. So, thank you. Yeah, it's good to. I was figuring out how to phrase that. Yeah, so Tulku Rinpoche, that's the difference. Not all Rinpoches are Tulkus, right? But they do have a method. So if you watch this movie 7 Years in Tibet, there's this. They actually show the process of how the person who's been authorized to find His Holiness the Dalai Lama has many visions, has many dreams, and they meditate a lot. Then they get there's a certain guidance that they get. It's highly intuitive. And then they go out and search for the reincarnation, and they find the reincarnation. Yes? Yes. So, thank you. So, yes, Samyak Sati, Samyak Samadhi. We'll do that tomorrow. And we'll also come back to Samyak Vyayama. Samyak Smriti, Samyak Samadhi. Okay. So, if there are no other questions, then I'll leave it here. And thank you. Thank you for coming. And so we'll meet tomorrow.
We are extending this satsanga 2 more days till 3rd. So, So we had a very elevating session on Buddha's enlightenment. As Bande said, that verse which comes in Lalita Vistara, it is very inspiring for many. Ihasane shushyatu me shariram tvagasti mamsam vilayam chayatu aprapya bodhim bahukalpa durlabham naivasanat kayamatas chalishyati. Let the body disintegrate. I will not make a move without attaining that. So it's a very inspiring thing, resolve. So now we have 2 more days. Today we heard that Brahmana asking Buddha, "Who are you?" And Buddha said, "I am not a Deva, I am not a Manushya, I am not a Yaksha." It's very familiar, right? What is it? Yes, Hastamalaka. Where Shankaracharya in his tour meets a boy. Boy was only 13 years old. He was not talking. He was not expressing his emotions. His father took him to many physicians and they all said, "He is perfectly all right, we do not know why he is like this." And they bring this boy to Shankaracharya and he asks him, "Who are you?" He just hugs him and says, "Kastvam Shisho, my dear child, who are you?" Kastvam Shisho, Kuta Agatosi, where are you coming from? Kim Namate, what is your name? When I see you, I am so happy. Mat Pritaye Priti Vivardhanosi. Bhagavan translated this to Tamil. Ingure, ni yar pillai, yarudai maindan nitan. So, that boy who was keeping quiet so many days, suddenly he explodes and he says, "I am not a man. I am not a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. I am not a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanapastha. Even a sannyasi I am not. I am not a Yaksha, Gandharva or anything. Naham Manushyo, na cha Deva Yaksho, na Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudraha, na Brahmachari, na Grihi, Vanastaha, Bhikshurna chaham, Nija Bodha Rupaha." Buddha said, "I am Buddha." Here he says, Nija Bodha Rupaha. Nija Bodha Vadivaname. I am that pure awareness, pure Chaitanya, consciousness. That is my real nature. This is what Vedanta is also. Just when you negate everything, the body is not me, the mind is not me, and go deeper within, that which you cannot negate, which is ever shining there, that is your real nature. You recognize that. And that is the Buddha within us, the real self within us. And that the Vedanta calls as Atma, Buddhism calls as Anatma. So, all Purna and Shunya, all same. If we say this, those who want to debate on these things, all of them will wake up. It's a problem with spiritual. We are here to be free of suffering, shoka nivritti. we are not here to win or to fight. We are here to be free of all suffering. That is what Buddha also searched for. Not to find some philosophy. It is to find the medicine which can heal suffering. As Bande today told, Mara means Mrityu, death. That is what Ramana Maharshi faced, death. And every seeker has to face. The Upanishad says death is prowling around. Mrityuhu dhavati. Everywhere you can see Mrityu. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says Kama is Mrityu, Krodha is Mrityu, Lobha is Mrityu, jealousy is Mrityu, desire is Mrityu, ignorance is Mrityu. And all this collectively comes to you as this body identity. Along with that, the fear of death. So unless a person encounters death, he will never realize the deathless thing, the immortal. That is why the Upanishad, Kata Upanishad speaks about Nachiketa going to the land of death. So death, we have to encounter death, see death. I have spoken about this many times, but for Bande's sake I am saying this. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, there were 3 or 4 deaths in our family, continuously. And there was a discussion happening with two elderly women. One of them is still alive, very old. She was asking the other woman, what is death? What happens when one dies? And I am only 8 or 9 years old. This is going through the years. What happens when one dies? And answer immediately came to my mind. You will be knowing that. Generally we are all taught, you die, you go to the Pitarloka and meet all your ancestors. So it's another journey, very comfortable, not very difficult to swallow. So the answer was coming to my mind because these functions are happening. For 13 days, every death function will be there. So it was continuously taking place that one child in our family was always seeing the ceremonies after death. So his father's younger brother was getting married. So the Purohitas were sitting there. So this child asked, is this my Chittapa's devasam? Shraddha. He says, it is the death ceremony that is happening for him. It was marriage. So this elderly woman was asking what happens when a person dies to another lady, and she bluntly gave a reply, what happens? They cease to exist. This was the reply, nothing. Become shunya. And that reply came to me like this, it was just suffocating me actually. And from within, something arose. It all happened in a few seconds, which said, how can na abhavo vidyate sataha? That which is, how can it cease to exist? It arose from within, and there was a kind of deep, profound peace. But I was too young even to recognize that, but the recollection was there. As they say, sati, smriti was there. Later on, when started studying the shastras and contemplation, this memory came back. Even in manana, nididhyasana, meditation, somewhere what Bhagavan faced in few minutes, a person has to face. And death is Vairagya. Facing death is Vairagya. The real Vairagya. As when they were saying they will go and sit in cremation ground, places where the body is burned. It's all the outer seeing. But when you actually see death, either you will become enlightened or you will lose your balance. You will break down. This is the Sandhya. This is the junction where you can transcend or you can become unsettled. Because you see everything is going to be removed, including your body, including your mind, including you. Bhagavan never recommended death experience for anyone. Never. Any place, no. He only said in deep sleep you have the same thing. By sleeping you will not become enlightened, but you recollect that state, where the greatest demonstration is there, that existence, sattva bhasika chitkva vetara sattayahi chit chittayahi aham. Sat, chit and aham. Existence and chit is pure awareness or consciousness. It cannot be translated so easily. Aham, the real I, is not this ego I which vanishes there, but the complete fulfillment. Nothing is lacking. Without the body, the fullness is there. So you recollect that state. Even the small book, Who Am I, Bhagavan begins with this. Every day, everyone is experiencing it. The Upanishad says it is like walking on a land where there is underneath there is treasure and you are begging. Without knowing, you are walking on a land where there is treasure. Every day you go into it, come out without knowing, without recognizing. Aharahar gachanti na viduhu. Every day you go, enter, come back, do not recognize. When you are recognizing power is awakened, you recognize that what you are seeking is already there. It is, Bhagavan in one place says, what you are seeking was already there before you started your seeking. So when you recognize that, in that recognition, great release, absolute freedom. It is not the release of the body, because the body can never become free. It is limitation. The mind is also limitation. But in our real nature, we are Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. Eternally free, eternally awakened, eternally pure. You just recognize that. Pratyabhijna. That is the word, pratyabhijna. You just recognize that. And that recognition, there is a paradigm shift from all limitations to the limitless. And that limitlessness, symbolically, you see in the space, Akasha. Akashavan nirmala nirvikalpam nisseema nispandana nirvikaram antarbahishshunyam ananyam advayam swayam param brahma kimasti bodhyam. This is a very profound verse from Vivekachudamani. Nisseema, nispandana, nirvikara. Nisseema means boundless. Nispandana means no throb, no vibration, no movement. Nirvikaram, no change. You recognize that is nirvana, that is Brahma. So we call it Brahma Nirvana. Akasha gives you a suggestion. Akashaha Tallingat. That is a sutra in Brahma Sutra. Akasha is a linga. As Bande was saying, his teacher always speaks about meditation on Akasha, that space. Avyavacheda. Akasha gives suggestion of that limitlessness. All mystics were fascinated by Akasha. When you see the space, when you see ocean, when you see that infinity, suddenly you recollect your own infinitude, your own hidden limitlessness, anantata, that ananta. Generally when we do achamana, we say Achyuta, Ananta, Govinda. Is Achyuta means no fall, the state where there is no fall. And Ananta means infinite. And Govinda means what is the source for all the sensory operations within you. Antaryami. Or that which is being attained by Mahavakyam. The teacher's words. When you listen to the teacher, the awakening happens. In Buddha's stories also we see many. One word from him, one sermon from him, someone is awakened. Shabda Shakti Rachintyatvat, the knower's Shabda, it has Achintya Shakti. An enlightened person's Shabda, that voice, it carries all the planes of experience. Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, Vaikari. The Shabda takes a dip into the fourth plane, which is the Para, and Pashyanti and Madhyama and Vaikari. Chatvari Vak Parimita Padani. Tani Vidur Brahmana Ye Manishina. There is a Vedic mantra which says, the sages, the wise ones, they know all the plane of Shabda. The Shabda which is uttered is Vaikari. And when it is caught by the recording instrument, it is no name for it. It is dead. Now when it comes out, it is Vaikari. Behind that there is Madhyama. Ideas are there. And behind that there is a small throb, the Chit. So any Shabda you catch hold of, that is the science of mantra japa. You utter, that is Vaikari mantra, then there is the inner throb, then there is only that wave, the idea, and when that also merges, there is that mauna, that true mauna, that true silence. So the Shabda takes you to the source where there is mauna. So too, when you are aware, any Shabda can take you there. Listening to the bird chirping, you can go there. And ultimately, what Bande said, listening to silence, that mauna, that nishalata, that is the highest. You can listen to the mauna. Sometimes many Western writers have written about Bhagavan's that state. The silence was so palpable, it appears as if you can cut it with a knife. It is so palpable. That maunam, so that is the inner maunam which flows out. Abhido Brahma Nirvanam Vartate Viditatmanam. As Gita says, the Viditatma, the knower, enlightened being, in his presence, Brahma Nirvana is like a water which comes out of a fountain and flows everywhere. Like that, Brahma Nirvana Sukha is around the knower. It is there in his presence. You can get the fragrance of that maunam. You can get the fragrance of that silence, in that sannidhi, in that presence. For that, you need a living being. AI is not enough. For that, you need a person. The Upanishad says, very beautiful expression, the Katha Upanishad says, when another person teaches you, you will not get it. The teacher should be in a state where there is no other. A teacher who has transcended the limitation of the other should tell you, then you will realize. This is one mantra, Ananya Prokte Gatiratra Nasti. The teacher should be Ananya, is in a state where there is no other. For him, disciple is not there. He alone is. And he looks at the disciple as himself, and that very look either puts the seed of enlightenment or it can in one sweep take away all limitations. That is also possible. So, the teacher is in that state of no other. And the next mantra, the Upanishad says, Prokta anyena eva sujnanaya parishta. Very contradictory statement. The Shruti says, only you yourself cannot make out this. Another has to come and tell you, and that another should not have other. The another should not have the other in him. You cannot, so another is not there. I will create my own philosophy. It is not possible. The other is needed and he should be free of the other. In that state, the teaching happens. So that is why the Upanishad says, such a teacher is a wonder. Asharyo Bhakta Kushalosya Labda. And the person who receives it, he is really very skillful because he knows how to die in that presence. He knows how to surrender in that presence and take the teaching. Otherwise, this fellow will not keep quiet. Again and again, wake up. So, just to be nobody. Because what you are seeing before you is not a person, it is truth. And there you completely offer yourself. It is not an emotional thing, it happens. It just happens. As Muruganar said, in Bhagavan's presence, he did not give me time even to close my eyes. Over. So like that, this Ananya and the teacher is a wonder, and the disciple is very skillful. Kushala. All these terms are all same. Asharya and Kushala. And the teacher is also a Kushala, and the disciple is a wonder. Next mantra says the teacher is Kushala and the disciple is wonder. See, Bhagavan was perfectly Kushala. Bhagavan will not outwardly initiate, but his initiation will be perfect. The giver knows, the receiver also knows. But if the ceremony is done, everyone will say, I also want your initiation. That is not possible. So it happens in the presence. Naturally happens in the presence. Kunju Swami used to say that Bhagavan's presence, that current of I, it will be like a river flowing. You touch, you get initiated. But to touch, you should be in that state. To touch that river, you should be in that state. The moment you touch, Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukhamasnute. That Brahma Samsparsha Sukha. You just touch it, that you are awakened. But how to touch that current? That current will be there. Dhara. Kunju Swami's word is Dhara. He used to say that Dhara will be there. And for that Dhara, that is the Dhara which, you see Shiva's head from Shiva, that Ganga flows out and everywhere it spreads out. That Chandra, Maul, Chuda, Ganga, that flows out. That is the Maunam. It just spills out everywhere. It just spills out. That sacred water which can initiate you. It is not the outer water. It is that Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti Chetana Rupa. The whole world is full of Jada Shakti, Jadatmika. You have so much Shakti here, you touch that Shakti, you also become Jadam, mechanical, inert, insensitive. Look on the mobile, you become insensitive. This Chit Shakti is Chetana Rupa. You touch that Shakti, you are energized. From within you are replenished, filled with silence, maunam. Jada Shakti, you become instantaneously insensitive. This Chit Shakti, you will come in touch with that Chit Shakti when you are fortunate enough to be in the presence of an awakened being, a Jivan Mukta, a real yogi, a jnani. In that presence, you feel this presence of the higher, the other. So that is real satsanga. And to make it just available, this Brahma Sampatti Devata prayed to Buddha that people should see that. For that, you must be present, move about in the world, so that they can see it is possible. They can see the power of that presence. So that is what we see in this story. Now more things are there about Buddha's disciples like Moggallana, Sariputra, everything. We have requested Bande to speak about them also. How they came to Buddha, what they got from Buddha. And Ananda's story is very, very well known, very inspiring. To him, Buddha gave the teaching, Atma Dipo Bhava. Be a light unto yourself. Uddhared Atmanatmanam, we say, no? Uddhared Atmanatmanam, Magnam Samsara Varithau. So you have to lift yourself. Don't Na Atmanam Avasadayet. Don't weaken yourself. Don't push you down to this, as in Bhagavan's word, sewage, in the drainage. Pal, that is the word. Palinil Vizhadu Ezhayai Kattu un Padattil Irutti Vaitanaye. That padam, that state where one is absolutely free, that state where you have the great well-beingness, that state where you have simply, you can say, peace, shanti. That is what spirituality is about. It is not about all these differences. Differences you can show everywhere. Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta. In Advaita Vedanta also so many differences. Buddhism also so many differences. We come to spirituality to remove Bheda. In this Abheda philosophy, so many Vedas are there. So Siddhanta Vyavastasu Dvaitino Nishchita Adridam Parasparam Virudhyante Taihi Ayam Na Virudhyate. As Gaudapada Acharya says, catching hold of one Siddhanta, they have conflict with another person. We have no conflict. Because all of you are saying from this corner, that corner, all right. The result is Shanti. That is peace. That is why even if you don't understand any Vedic mantra, the end you will understand. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We will see tomorrow. We will continue the same time. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Tabhi Parjanyo Varishadi Parjanyena Ushadhi Vanaspataya प्रजायन्त ओषधि वनस्पतिभिरन्नं भवत्यन्नेन प्राणाः प्राणैर्बलं बलेन तपस्तपसा श्रद्धया मेधा मेधया मनीषा मनीषया मनो मनसा शान्तिः शान्त्यां चित्तेन स्मृतिग्स्मृत्या स्मारग्स्मारेण विज्ञानम् आत्मानं वेदयति तस्मादन्नं ददन् सर्वाण्येतानि ददात्यन्नात् प्राणा भवन्ति भूतानां प्राणैर्मनो मनसश्च विज्ञानं विज्ञानादानन्दो ब्रह्मयोनिः अन्नपूर्णे सदा पूर्णे शङ्करप्राणवल्लभे ज्ञानवैराग्यसिद्ध्यर्थं भिक्षां देहि च पार्वती माता च पार्वती देवी पिता देवो महेश्वरः बान्धवाः शिवभक्ताश्च स्वदेशो भुवनत्रयम्